There is a peculiar tension that arises when someone who has awakened to a certain depth of understanding encounters someone who is still, as we might say, asleep. And by asleep, I do not mean literally unconscious, but rather living in the conventional dream, the collective trance, the agreed-upon fiction that most of society accepts without question. The person who is awake has seen through something fundamental, has recognized something essential, has had the veil lifted in some significant way. And the person who is asleep is still operating within the old assumptions, the old beliefs, the old way of seeing. When these two meet, something interesting happens, and it is rarely comfortable for either party. Let me describe first what occurs in the awakened person. There is initially often an impulse to share what has been seen, to communicate the realization, to help the other person see what is now so obvious. This comes from a genuine place of compassion, of wanting to relieve suffering, of recognizing that the other person is trapped in a prison they do not even know exists. It is like watching someone struggle with a locked door while you can clearly see that the door is not locked at all, they simply need to turn the handle differently. But very quickly, the awakened person discovers something frustrating. The realization cannot be simply handed over. It cannot be explained in a way that will make the sleeping person suddenly wake up. Because the sleeping person is not just lacking information, they are operating within an entire framework of understanding, an entire structure of perception that makes the awakened perspective literally incomprehensible to them. It is not that they are stupid or stubborn or willfully blind, it is that they cannot see what they cannot see. Their very way of looking prevents them from seeing. It is like trying to explain color to someone who has been blind from birth. You can use all the words you want, but the words cannot convey the actual experience. The framework for understanding is simply not there. And so the awakened person finds themselves in a strange position. They can see clearly what the sleeping person cannot see. They can see the suffering that is being created by false beliefs, by identification with the ego, by resistance to what is. They can see the freedom that would come from simply letting go, from simply seeing through the illusion, and yet they cannot make the other person see it. This can lead to a kind of loneliness, a sense of isolation, because the awakened person now lives in a different reality than the sleeping person. They are using the same words, occupying the same physical space, but they are experiencing fundamentally different worlds. The sleeping person is experiencing the world through the filter of ego, of separation, of constant doing and becoming and achieving. The awakened person is experiencing the world more directly, more simply, with less of that filtering, less of that separation. And so when they talk, they are often talking past each other. The sleeping person is concerned with things that seem utterly trivial to the awakened person's status, reputation, achievements, possessions. The awakened person tries to point to something deeper, something more fundamental. But to the sleeping person, this just sounds abstract, impractical, perhaps even irresponsible. The sleeping person might say, but what about paying the bills? What about getting ahead? What about making something of yourself? And these concerns are real within their framework. Within the dream of separation and achievement and constant striving, these concerns make perfect sense. But the awakened person is operating from a different understanding. They recognize that bills must be paid and practical matters must be handled, but they also see that all of this can be done without the anxiety, without the identification, without making it into some ultimate concern. They see that you can engage with the world without being enslaved by it, that you can participate in the game without forgetting it is a game. But how do you explain this to someone who believes the game is reality, who has staked their entire identity on succeeding within the game? You cannot. Or rather, you can speak the words, but the words will not penetrate. They will bounce off the shell of the sleeping person's belief system. Now, what happens in the sleeping person when they encounter someone who is awake? This varies greatly depending on the individual. Some sleeping people sense that the awakened person has something they do not have, some quality of peace or freedom or presence, and they are drawn to it. They may not understand it, They may not be able to articulate what it is, but they feel it and they want it. This can be the beginning of their own awakening. But more commonly, the sleeping person experiences the awakened person as threatening, not consciously, not explicitly, but on some deep level, because the awakened person's very presence calls into question everything the sleeping person has built their life upon. The awakened person is not striving, not anxious, not caught up in the same concerns, not playing the same game, and this is unsettling. The sleeping person's ego interprets this as a judgment, as a challenge, as an affront. Who does this person think they are, acting so calm, so unbothered, so above it all? The ego feels threatened by the presence of someone who is not enslaved to the ego. It feels exposed, diminished, invalidated. And so the sleeping person may respond with hostility, with mockery, with attempts to pull the awakened person back into the drama. You think you're so enlightened, don't you? You think you're better than everyone else? Let's see how you handle a real problem. This is the ego attempting to defend itself, attempting to drag the awakened person back into identification, back into the game, back into the dream. Or the sleeping person may simply dismiss the awakened one as strange, odd, not quite right. There's something off about them. They're not normal. They don't care about the right things. And in the context of the collective trance, they are absolutely right. The awakened person is not normal. They do not care about the same things that normal people care about. They have woken up from the shared dream, and from within the dream, this looks like madness. There is a saying in Zen, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The awakened person does the same things as everyone else, but from an entirely different place, with an entirely different quality. And this difference is invisible to the sleeping person. They see the same actions and assume the same motivations, the same concerns, the same inner experience. They cannot see the inner freedom, the inner spaciousness, the inner peace that accompanies the actions.